This is Hank Scott for The Pure Truth Restored. There are things in this world that are wrong, like the economy and the fact that nations go to war against other nations, and we often think we see the cause of the problems. It's usually somebody or something else over there that is at fault, we think. We elect leaders who at best are cheats, liars, or outright thieves, but we blame each other without seeing the real cause of the problem. You see, those people who seem to be the source of the trouble don't believe they are at fault any more than you do. In their eyes, it's the other guy or gal, perhaps even you, who is the cause of all the trouble. And they blame them or you for everything without understanding or realizing their own guilt and blame for what is wrong with the world. Or they think it is some outside situation, condition, out of control circumstance, or environmental upset that can, in turn, be blamed back on all those quote-unquote useless people who are supposedly causing all these troubles or problems, and they have the only solution that will cure, solve, or rid the earth of these problems once and for all. Of course, that usually means getting rid of all those people who disagree with them, who are the quote-unquote real source of the trouble. I can show you the reason why the economy is always causing financial troubles for everyone, and it isn't this or that usual culprit like management or labor or whatever other bugaboo you've been told is the reason for unemployment, poverty, and deprivation. Part of the reason is right here in my closed hands, which hold the evidence or proof of the problem, but not the reason or cause. But if you know what is in here and why it is clear proof of the actual cause, you'd probably reject it without another thought. Why? Because it flies in the face of what is the actual source of all the trouble, which is your unwillingness to accept the truth while embracing error and holding it dear, desperately thinking it must be true, no matter how much reality tries to get through to you, just how wrong you really are. How are you wrong? The same way everyone else is. You see, it isn't where we all disagree with one another that creates all the troubles in this world. It is where the vast majority agree together on what we believe is right, which is fundamentally and intrinsically dead wrong, that causes us to collectively stumble and fall over our own delusions in the end. It is the third rail sacred cows that are considered untouchable and beyond reproach, which everybody thinks is the foundational precepts of everything right, good, true, decent, honest, and moral, which are actually not, that is the real cause of all our woes. If you or I agree together, however ignorant we are, that this is wrong and evil, to take someone else's property a little at a time by voting together for a bond that requires them to pay a tax every year to repay that bond, or lose their property when they can no longer afford this rental to keep what is theirs, how is this not robbery? We think that if a bunch of people acting in concert, which we call the state, commit an act of theft, that since there is nobody bigger to punish them for the crime, that somehow makes it right, acceptable, and above reproach. Because some elected judge makes a decision without regard to the actual honest truth against a victim and in favor of those who have wronged them in the name of the state, most believe this somehow makes it lawful or legal, and that anything else must be wrong, illegal, or unlawful. But might, or the power to steal, incarcerate, or kill with seeming impunity, does not make a wrong right, which is why so many wars and natural quote-unquote disasters that are seemingly beyond human control are happening with increasing frequency around the world. There is a law that is above and beyond the reach of all human devised law that declares certain things fundamentally wrong or evil. That law will exact punishment for crimes against each other that human laws, executives, legislators, and judges, and society as a whole have declared okay and indulge in frequently. We think because it hasn't happened to us yet that there is no judgment day of reckoning for all our crimes against our fellow man or woman, which we have deceived ourselves into thinking are perfectly legal, just, and right. How do we do that? By looking at what the majority of others assume to be right and imitating each other without regard to the law that alone defines and shows us whether or not our conduct is actually, truly, without question, right and lawful. Let us see what that law has to say about the economy. It says that dishonest weights, scales, and measures, one light and the other heavy, for instance, used to deceive someone else into thinking they are getting more than they are, while cheating them, is evil and wrong. You and I probably agree that this is true and right. But what you don't know or realize is all the ways you are actually violating this very law and principle of fundamental honesty every single day without even realizing it. How? The answer is found right here in my closed hands. Are you ready to see what my hands contain, which proves beyond a shadow of a doubt how you and everyone else is engaged in criminally trespassing this law, which is bringing down on society and our heads a terrible judgment, which is pleading with us to wake up from our collective trance, to see our own fault, admit our error, repent or change, and begin doing things right? Let's see. In this hand, I have what you call a dollar bill. You probably don't think the word bill means that somebody owes someone else a debt for this piece of paper, but that's just what it means. Now let's examine what this piece of paper actually says. First, it claims right here, this note is legal tender for all debts, public and private. There's the word debts, which are what bills are for, to collect what is supposedly due. But honest debts are never forced upon you at the point of a gun, are they? Also, where are the words payment for in this statement? Could it be that these notes are solely for the purpose of creating debts, while denying anyone who uses them the ability to actually pay off those debts? How do they do this? Most people think the government creates the money, and that since we, the people, owe it to ourselves, we can always just renege on that debt and refuse to pay it, and nobody gets hurt. Think again. On this debt instrument, like all such bills or notes, the creditor is always named first, and the debtor is in the inferior position. So what name is found at the top of this note, which Americans think is our money, without examining it to see what the truth of the matter is? This says this is a Federal Reserve note, and under it it says, the United States of America, in all capital letters. So now you know who the creditor or owner of the note is, and who the debtors are who are in hock to the debtor with every note we distribute among ourselves, merely passing the debt along to the next person. So we do this until the bill comes due, which happens every time somebody reaches the limit of their ability to produce and pay the debts created by these bills, which we call the national debt. Whenever somebody goes bankrupt or loses their home to the taxman or the bank, which not surprisingly is happening with increasing frequency, or has to work harder than before for less buying power than ever, the creditor is extracting their pound of flesh from our economy, which makes all of us a bit poorer than we were previously. What we call inflation, because the more these pieces of paper are printed and circulated, the cheaper each one becomes in real purchasing power, and the poorer you and I, and we all, become as a direct result. Sooner or later, this fraud will end badly for everyone concerned, because every fraud has its inevitable day of reckoning. Now, this paper says that it is worth $1 right here on the bottom. This is an outright falsehood, deceptive lie, and con artist trick designed to deceive and rob you. And the shocking evidence and proof of this treasonous crime is right here in my other closed hand. What's in there? You're probably wondering. Well, let's see. Here I have a coin, which on its face says it is composed of 1 ounce fine silver, which is worth 10 times of these pieces of paper you call $1. Agreed? Now here's the evidence of dishonesty, false scales, or deceitful weights and measures right after that, where it says $1 right there. So if this coin minted by the U.S. Treasury is a real, actual, valuable dollar, then what is this piece of paper that claims on its face to be worth $1, which is actually worth only a fraction of what this coin, made from the precious metal of silver, is actually worth? Nothing less than an outright fraud, which not one person in a million, thanks to government-imposed inadequate public education, even realizes exists and is the real source of all our economic woes. You see, it also says on the face of this coin, "In God we trust." And most people assume this means the creator of heaven and earth. But God is actually a word from Chaldean, the language of ancient Babylon, that was the name of an idol which represented invading armies or troops of conquerors. And even though you will find this word in nearly every English Bible in all capital letters, standing in place of the Creator's only true name, which in the original language is revealed as Yahweh, the fact is that governments that include standing armies, invading other nations, and creating endless wars are actually the God in which society trusts, and not the actual Creator himself. I warned you that you might not like this blinding truth, all the more so the less accustomed to the glaring light of actual facts you have been, thanks to your own self-imposed ignorance. Why do I say self-imposed instead of blaming somebody else? Simply because you could have awakened at any time by questioning everything, proving all things, and holding fast only to that which is true and right. But you didn't because, like everyone else, you just assumed you already knew the quote-unquote truth and what was quote-unquote right, while you actually didn't have a clue about what is really going on right under your very nose. Control over our currency being given to a foreign corporation composed of many foreign bankers that is not actually part of the government, and allowing it or them to gradually rob our entire economy, makes all of us poorer, including those we call quote-unquote rich, who are just as guilty as the poorest, homeless, ignorant man or woman on the street for ceding control over our lives to these economic pirates. Not that the bankers are any more to blame for this situation than the media, the teachers, or you and me for ignorantly accepting and doing our own share of taking part in the same mass delusion as everyone else. We are all to blame and equally guilty for this major criminal conspiracy against Creator Yahweh's just and righteous law by placing man's laws, statutes, and legal precedents before him as the major idol of our modern age, called the government. Now that you know what's truly wrong with this world, what do you intend to do about it? Anything less than humble, tearful repentance, and doing your part to share this incredible but true message with anyone who will listen, is simply giving in to the evil, adversarial force at work, deceiving the entire world into suffering grievous judgments that could be avoided once we wake up to the pure truth and pursue it and the Creator who inspires it with all your heart, mind, and being. Then and only then can you begin to stop doing to others what you would never want them to do to you. Being guilty of and party to all the evils and troubles that are plaguing us all with increasing frequency.